The phone rang at exactly 7:30 in the morning. Dr. Maya Rodriguez was still in her pajamas, coffee cup in hand, when she heard the voice on the other end that would change everything. "We need you in Kenya. Immediately." Maya had been working with endangered animals for 15 years. She'd helped save pandas in China, worked with tigers in India, and spent countless nights in laboratories trying to solve the puzzle of animal reproduction. But nothing had prepared her for what came next. "It's about the northern white rhinos," the voice continued. "There are only 3 left in the entire world, and we think one of them might be our last hope." Maya set down her coffee cup. Her hands were already shaking. 3. In the entire world. She knew the numbers were bad, but hearing it said out loud made her stomach drop. The northern white rhino had once roamed across Central Africa in thousands. Massive, powerful creatures that looked like they belonged in prehistoric times. But poaching and habitat loss had destroyed them. One by one they disappeared until only a handful remained in zoos and conservation centers. "The female's name is Casey," the caller explained. "She's 34 years old. Her daughter Amara is with her, but Amara can't have babies. Cassie is literally the last female of her kind who might be able to carry a pregnancy. Without her, the species dies forever." Maya had dealt with pressure before, but this was different. This wasn't just about helping one animal. This was about preventing an entire species from vanishing from Earth. Forever. 2 days later, Maya found herself on a plane to Kenya, her medical equipment packed in special cases around her. The flight felt endless. She kept thinking about what awaited her. How do you look at an animal and know that everything depends on them? How do you handle that kind of responsibility? The old Pajeda Conservancy sat under the big African sky like something from a nature documentary. Rolling hills, acacia trees, and endless grassland stretched in every direction. Maya had seen beautiful places before, but this felt sacred somehow. Maybe because she knew what lived here. Robert, the head keeper, met her at the entrance. He was a quiet man in his 50s who had been caring for rhinos for most of his adult life. His weathered hands and gentle eyes told stories of decades spent with these magnificent creatures. "She knows you're coming," Robert said as they walked toward the enclosure. "I swear she can sense when something important is happening." Yesterday, she kept looking toward the road like she was waiting. Maya felt her heart racing. In all her years of work, she'd never felt this nervous about meeting an animal. But then again, she'd never met an animal carrying the weight of an entire species on her shoulders. They rounded a corner, and there she was. Cassie stood in a patch of afternoon sunlight, her massive gray body perfectly still. At over 4,000 pounds, she was bigger than Maya had imagined. Her horn, though smaller than it should have been due to careful trimming for her protection, still looked formidable. But it was her eyes that stopped Maya in her tracks. Those eyes were ancient and knowing. They seemed to hold the wisdom of thousands of years of evolution. And right now they were looking directly at Maya. "Hello, beautiful girl," Maya whispered, approaching the fence slowly. Cassie took 3 steps forward. Then she did something that made Robert gasp in surprise. She pressed her massive head against the fence, right where Maya was standing. It was as if she was trying to get as close as possible to this new human who had come to help her. "I've never seen her do that with a stranger," Robert said, his voice full of amazement. "Usually it takes weeks for her to warm up to new people, but look at her. It's like she knows why you're here." Maya reached out carefully and touched Casey's thick skin through the fence. It was warm and surprisingly soft. Casey didn't move away. Instead, she pressed closer, making a low rumbling sound deep in her chest. "She's talking to you," Robert explained. "That's her happy sound. She only makes it when she feels completely safe." Standing there touching this incredible creature, Maya felt the full weight of her mission. This wasn't just another job. This was about giving Cassie a chance to be a mother. This was about bringing baby rhinos back into the world. This was about hope. That evening, Maya sat in her small room at the research station, going through Casey's medical files. The numbers weren't encouraging. Casey was old for a rhino. Her hormone levels were declining. Time was running out, not just for the species, but for Cassie herself. But there was something else in those files that gave Maya hope. Despite everything Casey had been through, despite being one of the last of her kind, she remained healthy and strong. Her spirit hadn't been broken. If anything, she seemed to understand the importance of what they were trying to do. Maya looked out her window toward the enclosure where Casey slept. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. They would start the tests, the treatments, the careful process of trying to give this magnificent animal the chance to become a mother. The pressure was enormous. The whole world would be watching. Scientists, conservationists, and animal lovers everywhere were hoping for a miracle. But sitting there in the African night, listening to the sounds of the savannah, Maya felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. Maybe it was Casey's calm acceptance of her role. Maybe it was the way the rhino had looked at her with such trust. Or maybe it was simply being in the presence of something so rare and precious that it put everything else into perspective. Whatever happened in the coming weeks, Maya knew she was part of something bigger than herself. She was part of the last chapter of an ancient story. And tomorrow she would begin writing what she hoped would be a new beginning. Maya's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., but she was already awake. She had been lying in bed for the past hour, thinking about Casey and what the day would bring. Today would be the first real medical examination, and Maya needed everything to go perfectly. She grabbed her coffee and walked to the window. In the early morning light, she could see Casey already moving around her enclosure. The massive rhino seemed to have her own routine, walking the same path every morning like she was patrolling her territory. "You're up early too, aren't you, girl?" Maya whispered to herself. By 6 a.m., Maya was at the enclosure with her equipment. Robert was already there, preparing Casey's breakfast. The rhino's diet was carefully planned: special pellets, fresh vegetables, and her favorite treat, sweet potatoes. "She always knows when something different is happening," Robert said, watching Casey. "Look at how she's standing. She's more alert than usual." Maya noticed it too. Casey wasn't just alert. She seemed curious. Instead of focusing on her food like most mornings, she kept looking at Maya and the medical equipment. "Let's take this slow," Maya said. "I want her to get comfortable with everything before we start any procedures." For the first hour, Maya simply sat near the fence with her equipment visible but not threatening. She talked to Casey in a soft voice, explaining what each tool was for, even though she knew the rhino couldn't understand the words. "This is just a stethoscope, Casey. It helps me listen to your heart. And this little device checks your temperature. Nothing scary, I promise." Something incredible happened then. Casey walked over to the fence and lay down right next to where Maya was sitting. All 4,000 pounds of her settled into the dirt, close enough that Maya could have reached through and touched her. "I don't believe it," Robert said, shaking his head. "She's never done that, never. Even with me, and I've been caring for her for 10 years. Maya felt a lump in her throat. This beautiful, intelligent creature was showing complete trust in a human she had just met. It was like Casey understood that Maya was there to help, not hurt. The first medical examination went better than anyone had hoped. Casey stood perfectly still while Maya checked her heart rate, breathing, and general health. When Maya needed to take blood samples, Casey didn't even flinch. She just watched Maya work with those ancient, knowing eyes. "You're being such a good patient," Maya told her, patting her thick skin. "Your heart sounds strong and your breathing is perfect." But it was what happened after the examination that really amazed everyone. As Maya was packing up her equipment, Casey did something that made everyone stop and stare. She walked over to Maya and gently placed her massive head on Maya's shoulder. The weight was incredible, probably 200 pounds of pure muscle and bone resting on Maya. But Cassie was so gentle, so careful, that it felt more like a hug than anything else. "She's thanking you," Robert said, his voice full of emotion. "I've seen her do this with me a few times over the years, but only when she's really happy about something." Maya stood there for several minutes, this incredible creature leaning on her like they were old friends. She could feel Casey's warm breath on her neck and hear the gentle rumbling sound she made when she was content. Over the next few days, Maya and Casey developed an even stronger bond. Every morning, Casey would be waiting by the fence when Maya arrived. During medical procedures, she would position herself to make Maya's job easier. And every evening before Maya left, Casey would come over for what they started calling their goodnight ritual, that gentle head-on-shoulder moment that meant everything was okay. Maya started keeping a journal, not just of medical notes, but of all the little things that made Casey special. The way she preferred her sweet potatoes cut into small pieces. How she always touched Maya's equipment with her horn before allowing any procedures like she was giving permission. The soft snorting sound she made when she was thinking about something. She's not just the last fertile female of her species, Maya wrote one evening. She's an individual with her own personality, her own preferences, her own way of showing affection. People need to know that she's not just a symbol of conservation. She's a living, breathing soul who deserves respect and love. The medical tests were revealing important information. Cassie's hormone levels showed she was still capable of reproduction, but time was definitely a factor. Her cycles were becoming less predictable, and her fertility window was narrowing. Maya found herself spending more and more time just sitting with Casey, sometimes not talking at all. There was something peaceful about being in the presence of this magnificent animal. Despite carrying the weight of her entire species' survival, Casey seemed remarkably calm and accepting of her situation. One afternoon, while Maya was reviewing test results, Casey approached the fence and made a sound Maya had never heard before. It was softer than her usual rumble, almost like a whisper. "What is it, beautiful?" Maya asked, looking up from her papers. Casey was staring at something in the distance. Following her gaze, Maya saw a group of white rhinos, southern white rhinos, grazing in a far pasture. They were a different subspecies, but they looked similar enough that Maya wondered if Casey recognized them as distant cousins. For a long moment, both Maya and Casey watched the other rhinos. Maya felt a deep sadness thinking about how Casey must feel, being so close to others of her kind yet so utterly alone in her genetic isolation. "I know, girl," Maya said softly. "I know you must feel lonely sometimes, but you're not really alone. You have all of us rooting for you, and maybe if we're very lucky and work very hard, you might not be the last much longer." Cassie turned back to Maya and made that gentle rumbling sound again. In that moment, Maya felt like they had made a promise to each other. Maya would do everything in her power to help Casey become a mother, and Casey would trust her completely throughout the process. The pressure was enormous, but somehow, sitting there with this incredible creature, Maya felt ready for whatever came next. 6 weeks into the project, Maya woke up to find her hands shaking as she reached for her coffee. Today was different. The hormone tests from yesterday had shown something that made her heart race with excitement and terror at the same time. Casey was entering her optimal breeding cycle. Maya had been tracking every detail of Casey's body for weeks. Temperature changes, hormone levels, behavioral patterns, everything pointed to this moment. This was their best shot, maybe their only real shot. She grabbed her phone and called the team leader back in London. Her voice was barely steady as she spoke. "The numbers are perfect," she said. "Everything is lining up exactly how we hoped. If we're going to try this, it has to be now." The response was immediate. Within hours, calls were being made around the world. The frozen genetic material from Sudan, the last male northern white rhino who had died 3 years earlier, was being prepared. Equipment was being checked and double-checked. Everyone knew this could be the moment that saved an entire species. Maya spent the morning with Casey, who seemed to sense that something important was happening. The rhino was more attentive than usual, following Maya's every movement with those intelligent eyes. "Do you know what's going on, beautiful girl?" Maya asked, gently stroking Casey's thick skin through the fence. "Do you understand that you might become a mama?" Casey made her soft rumbling sound and pressed closer to the fence. It was like she was trying to tell Maya that she was ready for whatever came next. That afternoon, Dr. Williams arrived from Nairobi with the specialized equipment they would need. He was one of the best reproductive veterinarians in Africa, but even he looked nervous as they prepared everything. "The pressure is incredible," he admitted to Maya as they checked the equipment one final time. The whole world is watching this. If it works, we make history. If it doesn't, it has to work, Maya said simply. Cassie deserves this chance. Her species deserves this chance. The night before the procedure, Maya couldn't sleep. She walked out to Casey's enclosure around midnight and found the rhino standing near the fence almost like she was waiting. "Hey there, beautiful," Maya whispered. "Can't sleep either?" Casey approached the fence and did something that took Maya's breath away. She lowered her massive head and gently touched Maya's forehead with her own, the fence the only thing between them. They stood like that for several minutes, human and rhino, connected in a moment of perfect understanding. Maya felt tears running down her cheeks. "Tomorrow, we try to give you the baby you've been waiting for your whole life," she whispered. "I promise I'll do everything I can to make this work." The morning of the procedure dawned clear and bright. Maya was at the enclosure by 5 a.m., but Cassie was already awake and waiting. The rhino seemed calmer than Maya felt. Dr. Williams arrived, with his team at 7 a.m. The equipment was set up with military precision. Everyone moved quietly, professionally, but Maya could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just another medical procedure. This was potentially the most important moment in conservation history. "How is she doing?" Dr. Williams asked, looking at Casey. "She's incredible," Maya replied. "It's like she knows how important this is. She's been so cooperative, so trusting." The sedation was the part Maya had worried about most, but Cassie accepted, the mild tranquilizer without any struggle. As she became drowsy, she kept her eyes on Maya, like she was saying, "I trust you to take care of me." The actual procedure took less than an hour, but it felt like a lifetime. Maya held Casey's head in her lap, talking to her softly the entire time. Dr. Williams worked with steady hands, using techniques that had taken decades to perfect. "There," he said finally, stepping back. "The genetic material is in place. Now, we wait." Cassie woke up slowly, blinking those ancient eyes as the sedation wore off. The first thing she did was look for Maya. When she spotted her, she made a soft sound that seemed to say, "Are you still here? Is everything okay?" "I'm right here, beautiful," Maya said, tears in her eyes. "You did so well. You were perfect." Over. The next few days, Maya watched Casey like a hawk. Any change in behavior, appetite, or mood could be a sign that the procedure had worked. The whole team was on edge, but they tried to maintain normal routines. Cassie seemed different, though. She was more protective of her space, more selective about her food. She stayed closer to Maya than ever before, like she needed the extra comfort and security. "Do you think she knows?" Robert asked one evening as they watched Casey settle down for the night. "I think she hopes," Maya replied. "Just like we do." The waiting was the hardest part. Every morning Maya would check for signs. Every evening she would review the day's observations. The pregnancy test wouldn't be reliable for another 2 weeks, but Maya found herself looking for clues everywhere. Cassie's appetite changed slightly. She became more interested in the sweet potatoes and less interested in the regular pellets. She spent more time lying down than usual. Most tellingly, she became even more gentle with Maya, if that was possible. "She's nesting," Robert observed one day. "Look how she's arranging the straw in her favorite spot. She's making it more comfortable." Maya felt a flutter of hope in her chest. Could it be? Was Casey's body already responding to the possibility of carrying new life? 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Maya barely slept, constantly thinking about what the test results would show. The entire conservation community was holding its breath. News outlets around the world were following the story. The pressure was enormous, but every time Maya felt overwhelmed, she would look at Cassie and find strength. This magnificent creature had given her complete trust. She had cooperated with every procedure, endured every test, and maintained her gentle spirit throughout it all. If Casey could be brave enough to carry the hopes of her entire species, then Maya could be brave enough to help her do it. Whatever the test results showed, they had given it their absolute best effort, The bond between them had grown even stronger during these crucial weeks. They were partners now, united in hope and determination. Together, they were fighting to bring new life into the world and save a species from extinction. Tomorrow they would know if their fight had been successful. The pregnancy test results arrived on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. Maya was feeding Casey her breakfast when Dr. Williams called her phone. She could tell from his voice before he even said the words. "Maya, I'm sorry, the test is negative." The phone felt heavy in her hand. She looked at Casey, who was peacefully eating her sweet potatoes, completely unaware that their dreams had just been shattered. "Are you sure?" Maya asked, though she knew Dr. Williams wouldn't have called unless he was certain. "We ran it 3 times. I'm so sorry, Maya. I know how much hope we all had." Maya hung up the phone and sat down heavily on the ground. Casey noticed immediately that something was wrong. She stopped eating and walked over to the fence, making that soft questioning sound she used when she was concerned. "Oh, beautiful girl," Maya whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry it didn't work." For the first time since arriving in Kenya, Maya allowed herself to cry. All the pressure, all the hope, all the sleepless nights came pouring out. She had failed. She had failed Casey, failed the species, failed everyone who had believed in this project. Casey did something then that Maya would never forget. The massive rhino lowered her head and gently nuzzled Maya's shoulder through the fence. It was like she was trying to comfort the human who had worked so hard to help her. "You're comforting me?" Maya asked through her tears. "You should be angry with me. I promised you a baby and I couldn't deliver." But Casey just stayed close, offering her quiet presence. There was no anger in those ancient eyes, only understanding and acceptance. The news spread quickly through the conservation community. Maya's phone started ringing with calls from around the world. Some were supportive, others were devastated, and a few were already talking about what to try next. "We can't give up," Dr. Peterson from the International Rhino Foundation said during a video call later that day. "This was just the first attempt. We have more genetic material. We can try different techniques." Maya looked out her window at Casey, who was lying in her favorite spot under the acacia tree. The rhino looked peaceful, but Maya noticed she wasn't eating as much as usual. "I need to think about what's best for Cassie," Maya said. "This isn't just about saving the species. She's an individual who deserves to be treated with respect." Over the next few weeks, support poured in from unexpected places. Donations came from school children who had heard about Cassie's story. Scientists offered new techniques and equipment. The whole world seemed to be rallying behind this gentle giant and her last chance at motherhood. Maya threw herself into preparing for a second attempt. She researched new methods, consulted with experts in different countries, and fine-tuned every detail of their approach. But she also noticed changes in Casey that worried her. The rhino was still gentle and trusting, but she seemed more tired than before. She took longer naps and wasn't as interested in her favorite foods. Most concerning of all, she started avoiding the medical equipment that she had once approached with curiosity. "She's stressed," Robert observed one evening as they watched Casey from a distance. "I've never seen her like this before. She's always been so strong, so resilient." Maya felt a knot forming in her stomach. Was the pressure of repeated procedures taking a toll on Casey? Was their attempt to save her species actually hurting her? The second attempt came 2 months later. This time they tried a different approach using more advanced techniques. Maya had consulted with experts from around the world and everyone agreed this method had a better chance of success. But from the moment they began preparing, Maya could see that Casey was different. The rhino, who had once cooperated eagerly, now seemed reluctant. She still allowed the procedures, but her trust seemed shaken. "It's okay, beautiful," Maya whispered during the sedation. "I know this is hard, but maybe this time will be different." The procedure itself went smoothly, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Casey's recovery was slower than before. She seemed withdrawn, spending more time alone and less time interacting with Maya and Robert. The waiting period was even more difficult this time. Maya found herself second-guessing every decision. Was she pushing Casey too hard? Was the stress of repeated procedures fair to this magnificent creature? Casey's behavior during these weeks was heartbreaking. She would still come to the fence when Maya arrived, but she no longer pressed close for their morning greeting. She ate her food, but without the enthusiasm she had shown before. Most painfully, she started positioning herself with her back to the medical area, as if she was trying to avoid reminders of what they had put her through. "She's losing faith in us," Maya told Robert one evening. "Look at her. She's not the same happy, trusting rhino she was when I first arrived." Robert nodded sadly. "I've been caring for her for 10 years and I've never seen her like this. She's always been so brave, so willing to trust humans, but now..." The second test results came back negative as well. This time Maya wasn't surprised. She had almost expected it, but that didn't make the disappointment any less crushing. She walked to Casey's enclosure to break the news, even though she knew the rhino couldn't understand the words. Casey was lying under her favorite tree, and when she saw Maya approaching, she didn't get up. She just watched with those wise eyes that seemed to already know. "I'm sorry, beautiful girl," Maya said, sitting down near the fence. "I know you trusted me to make this work, and I let you down. Twice." Casey looked at her for a long moment, then slowly got up and walked to the fence. But instead of her usual gentle nuzzle, she simply stood there, close, but not touching. It was like she was saying goodbye to the hope they had shared. That night, Maya made one of the hardest decisions of her career. She called the international team and told them she was recommending they stop the breeding attempts. "We can't put her through this again," she explained. "Look at what we've already done to her. She's stressed, she's unhappy, and she's losing trust in the humans who care for her. Is saving the species worth destroying her spirit?" The debate that followed was intense. Some people accused Maya of giving up too easily. Others supported her decision, saying that Casey's welfare had to come first. The conservation world was divided, but Maya had made up her mind. She had looked into Casey's eyes and seen the toll their efforts were taking. This beautiful, intelligent creature deserved better than to be a tool for human ambition, no matter how well-intentioned. The hardest part was knowing that with this decision, the northern white rhino was one step closer to extinction. But Maya had realized something important. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. The decision to stop the breeding attempt sent shockwaves around the world. Maya's phone rang constantly for 3 days straight. Reporters wanted statements, scientists demanded explanations, and conservation groups argued both for and against. "Her choice. You're giving up on an entire species," one angry caller shouted into the phone. "How can you live with yourself?" But Maya had made peace with her decision. Every morning when she looked at Casey, she knew she had made the right choice. The rhino was already showing signs of recovery. She was eating better, sleeping more peacefully, and slowly beginning to trust again. "I'm not giving up on the species," Maya told a journalist during one of many interviews. "I'm choosing to honor the individual animal who trusted me with her life. Casey has given us everything she could. Now it's time for us to give her something back, her dignity and peace." The debate raged in scientific journals and conservation magazines. Some experts called Maya a hero for putting animal welfare first. Others said she had abandoned her responsibility to future generations. The arguments were fierce, but Maya tried to tune them out and focus on what mattered most: Casey. 3 weeks after the decision, something beautiful happened. Maya was sitting by the fence, writing in her journal, when Casey approached. For the first time since the failed procedures, the gentle giant pressed her massive head against the fence, seeking that physical connection they had shared in the beginning. "Hello there, beautiful girl," Maya whispered, reaching through to touch Casey's warm skin. "Are you feeling better?" Casey made her soft rumbling sound, the happy sound that Maya hadn't heard in weeks. It was like sunshine breaking through clouds. Robert appeared beside them, smiling for the first time in days. "She's coming back to herself," he said. "Yesterday I saw her playing with her ball for the first time since the second procedure, and this morning she was actually excited about breakfast." Maya felt tears of relief rolling down her cheeks. They may not have saved the northern white rhino species, but they had saved Casey's spirit. and that mattered just as much. Over the following weeks, Maya began a new project. Instead of focusing on reproduction, she started documenting everything that made Kessie unique. Her personality, her preferences, her individual quirks and behaviors. She wanted the world to know Kessie not as a symbol of extinction, but as a remarkable individual who deserved to be remembered. People need to understand, Maya wrote in her journal one evening, that Kessie isn't just the last fertile female. She's a creature who loves sweet potatoes cut into small pieces. She has a favorite sleeping spot under the acacia tree. She gets excited when it rains and likes to stand in the water. She mourns when other animals die and celebrates when new babies are born in other enclosures. She's not just a scientific specimen. She's a living, feeling soul. Maya started sharing these stories during interviews and presentations. She talked about the morning Casey had comforted her after the failed pregnancy test. She described how the rhino would carefully inspect new enrichment toys before deciding whether she liked them. She shared videos of Casey playing in mud puddles with the pure joy of a creature who was finally free from the pressure of carrying her species' future. The response was incredible. Letters poured in from around the world, from children who drew pictures of Kessie, from adults who had been inspired by her story, from other conservationists who had faced similar difficult decisions. One letter particularly touched Maya's heart. It was from a young girl in Brazil who wrote, "Thank you for letting Kessie be happy. I think being happy is more important than having babies if you don't want to. My mom says you're very brave for choosing what's right instead of what people expected." As autumn arrived in Kenya, Maya knew her time at Olpeheta was coming to an end. Other projects needed her attention, and Kessie was stable and content, but leaving felt impossible. How do you say goodbye to a connection like theirs? Maya spent her final weeks creating a comprehensive guide for Kessie's future care. She documented every detail of the rhino's daily routine, her medical needs, her behavioral patterns, and most importantly, her emotional requirements. She needs human contact every day, Maya wrote in the care guide. Not just for feeding and medical checks, but for companionship. She's incredibly social and forms deep bonds. Whoever cares for her next needs to understand that she's not just a rhino, she's Kessie, and she has specific needs and preferences that must be respected. The night before Maya's departure, she did something she had never done before. She asked Robert if she could spend the night in the enclosure with Kessie. After some discussion with the veterinary team, they agreed it would be safe. Maya set up a sleeping bag near Kessie's favorite resting spot. As darkness fell over the African savanna, the massive rhino approached and lay down beside her. Not touching, but close enough that Maya could hear her gentle breathing. "Thank you, beautiful girl," Maya whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. Thank you for showing me that sometimes the greatest victory isn't achieving your goals in its own. It's knowing when to put love before ambition." Kessie made a soft sound in response, and Maya could swear it sounded like understanding. They slept under the stars together, human and rhino, connected by something deeper than science or conservation goals. They had shared a journey of hope, disappointment, and ultimately profound respect for each other. The next morning, Maya packed her equipment for the last time. Kessie watched from her usual spot by the fence, seeming to understand that their time together was ending. Maya approached the fence one final time. Kessie came forward and pressed her forehead against the barrier, just as she had done that very first day. But this time Maya understood what the gesture really meant. It wasn't desperation or need. It was gratitude and love. "Goodbye, my beautiful friend," Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. "Live well. Be happy. You've earned the right to simply be yourself." As Maya's vehicle pulled away from the conservancy, she looked back to see Kessie standing tall and proud in the morning sun. The last fertile female of her kind was no longer carrying the weight of species survival on her shoulders. She was free to simply be Kessie, magnificent, gentle, and loved for exactly who she was. Maya's work with Kessie had ended differently than anyone had planned, but it had taught the world something invaluable. Sometimes the greatest conservation success isn't saving a species from extinction. It's saving an individual animal's dignity, happiness, and right to live without the burden of impossible expectations. Kessie continues to thrive at Olpejeta, no longer the last hope for her species, but something even more precious. A reminder that every creature on Earth deserves to be valued for who they are, not just what they represent.